Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 4th of April and we are going to discuss three very important topics which are in news. The first is earthquake in Taiwan. Taiwan witnessed an earthquake measuring more than 7 on the Richter scale. This earthquake has shaken the entire country and Taiwan has experienced multiple earthquakes in the past few years. Reason? Because it is there part of the ring of fire in the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ring of Fire basically experiences a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes due to multiple plate boundaries, and these plates are constantly moving against each other. This causes tectonic activities like earthquakes and volcanoes. Next is Supreme Court to hear petition on mandatory VVPATs in all the polling stations. Now VVPAT is basically a method to authenticate the vote which you have casted on the EVM. Presently, the scenario is that only 5 polling stations in a particular constituency will be having VVPAT machines where the counting through the VVPAT chits which are printed is done. The opposition leaders have petitioned in the Supreme Court that it should be mandated in all the polling stations. Obviously, this will increase the voter confidence and bring in transparency in the electoral processes of the country. Let's see what the Supreme Court hears on this, and next week is the ruling on this. The last topic is glacial lake outbursts. The National Disaster Management Authority has undertaken a study on glacial lake outbursts in the state of Uttarakhand. There are 13 glacial lakes in Uttarakhand. These lakes are formed due to the melting of glaciers. But if the melting intensifies, then these lakes outburst, turning into a flood. Last year in October, Sikkim witnessed such kind of floods in the Teesta River. Uttarakhand itself has witnessed 2 disasters, one in 2013 in Kedarnath and the other in 2021 in Chamoli district. Presently, 13 lakes have been identified in Uttarakhand which are at a risk of these glacial lake outbursts. Again, climate change or global warming has a crucial role to play over here because it will intensify the melting of the glaciers, which can result into such disasters. So let us look at the first topic, that is earthquake in Taiwan. So multiple injuries, deaths also did happen. We have been seeing multiple videos doing rounds on the social media. All these videos were showcasing that how, the tremors were felt over there in that island country. You might have come across videos of people traveling in a metro train, or a man swimming in a swimming pool, or vehicles going and then standing by on a flyover where the entire, I would say, earth was shaking. And this is not something new which the Taiwanese experience. There have been multiple earthquakes in Taiwan in the recent past and in the distant past as well. Well, this time's earthquake measurement was 7.4 according to US Geological Survey and 7.2 magnitude according to Taiwan's Earthquake Monitoring Agency. On a safer side, we can say that it was more than 7 on the Richter scale, and earthquakes which are measuring more than 7 on a Richter scale have this potential to cause damage to the buildings and all. So we might have seen multiple images also where the buildings have been damaged. Now, where was the epicenter of this earthquake? Epicenter was there 18 kilometers south to southwest of Hualien County, which is there in eastern Taiwan. So epicenter is that place from where that the tremors are originated, the center point of the tremors. Aftershocks were also experienced. Aftershocks means once this earthquake came, it stopped, and after that also multiple earthquakes came, and some were measuring 5 on the Richter scale. The highest aftershock was 6.5 magnitude on the Richter scale. So all in all, it has caused a lot of damages. But as UPSC aspirants, we need to understand the details of an earthquake. How does an earthquake come? And the answer to this, that why this earthquake came in Taiwan, or why Taiwan experiences frequent earthquakes, the answer lies in the Pacific Ring of Fire. So what is that Pacific Ring of Fire? We will also see that. But yes, is Taiwan prone to earthquakes? Yes, because Taiwan is prone to earthquakes. Why? Because Taiwan is part of this Pacific Ring of Fire. And, the island and its surrounding waters have registered about 2,000 earthquakes with a magnitude of 4 or greater since 1980. and more than 100 earthquakes with a magnitude above 5.5. So these many earthquakes have come, and that is why Taiwan is prone to earthquakes. Why? Because it is part of Pacific Ring of Fire. So what is Pacific Ring of Fire? At times it is also referred to as Pacific Rim of Fire also. It is basically a string of volcanoes and earthquake sites which run along the Pacific Ocean. That is called as Pacific Ring of Fire, and if you have to see it through a map, so this is a proper map of it. This is the Pacific Ocean. So the western side of Pacific Ocean, the eastern side of Pacific Ocean, covering multiple countries like North America, South America over here, these continents, USA and all, then South America over here. Then we have these countries from the ASEAN region, or we call it Southeast Asia. Then we go to Japan and all. So it is all part of Pacific Ring of Fire. Now there are multiple active volcanoes and multiple, I would say, earthquake sites in this particular region. Now why it is there in this particular region? So the answer to this, that why it is there, lies in the plate tectonics theory. Those who've read in geography, you might be aware about this theory, but those who are new, this theory is new for them. So I'll just explain in brief that what plate tectonics theory means. Now this entire earth is divided into multiple plates. That plate can be a terrestrial plate or it can be an oceanic plate. Big plates or huge plates are 6 or 7, and there are multiple small plates. Like for example, Pacific Ocean. That is considered to be an oceanic plate, because see, you are seeing ocean above and there is that ocean crust below. So this entire earth is divided into multiple plates. Now depending on these plates, if terrestrial region dominates these plates, so it will be called as a terrestrial plate. If oceanic region dominates these plates, it will be called as an oceanic plate. So for example, Pacific is known as an oceanic plate. Eurasian plate, which comprises of Europe and Asia, where countries like Russia, China and all are there. So that is called as Eurasian plate. These are major plates, examples of major plates. The Eurasian plate is a terrestrial plate because continents are there, land is there, land dominates it. So these plates, what does plate tectonic theory says? The plate tectonic theory says that these plates are constantly moving. So let's suppose this is a plate, this is another plate. They are constantly moving against each other. And if this happens that, a weak plate, let's suppose oceanic plate is considered as a weak plate as compared to a terrestrial plate. Why? Because, oceanic crust, it is soft, sandy. So when the movement is there, between these two plates, and oceanic plate is moving, this is the terrestrial plate, this is the oceanic plate is moving towards the terrestrial plate. So oceanic plate will, subduct, it will go down because it is softer. And when it goes down, it goes and strikes the magma and lava there inside the earth's, I would say, structure. And then that magma or lava comes out, and that comes out in a terrestrial plate. That is why active volcanoes are there. And whenever these plate movements happen, a lot of energy is released that causes earthquakes. So this is basically the reason why Pacific Rim of Fire is formed. And according to the researchers, Pacific plate is there, and Pacific plate is surrounded by multiple plates, multiple minor plates. And these plates, minor or major, they are in constant motion against each other. So that constant motion creates volcanoes as well as earthquakes. So it is a semicircle. This Pacific Ring of Fire is a semicircle or horseshoe shaped, as we just saw, and stretches nearly 40,250 kilometers. The Ring of Fire traces the meeting points of numerous tectonic plates. So numerous tectonic plates are there, and meeting points are there, or tectonic boundaries or plate boundaries we call them, including the Eurasian plate, North American plate, Juan de Fuca, Cocos, Caribbean, Nazca, Antarctic plate, the Indian plate, Australian plate, Philippine plate, and other smaller plates also are there. So, these many plates are there in this region, Pacific region. And that is why this Pacific Ring of Fire has been formed. So, again going back to this image. So, multiple plates. This is, let's suppose, the Pacific plate, the red line which I have drawn. This is the Australian plate. Here we have the Indian plate. This is the plate of Indian plate's boundary. This is basically Eurasian plate because China, Russia and all is part of Eurasian plate, and these plates are constantly moving against each other, and this movement causes eruption of volcanoes as well as earthquakes. Now, why specific ring of fire prone to earthquakes? So we will go into the details with this. The ring of fire witnesses so many earthquakes due to the following reasons. First is constant sliding past. These plates are constantly sliding against each other since they are constantly moving, and whenever movement is there, energy is released. So when energy is released, earthquakes happen. Colliding into or moving above or below each other of the tectonic plates. So these kind of movements happen. They either constantly slide or they collide with each other, or one plate if it is soft, one plate if it is hard, the softer plate goes or is subducted. So that causes basically the earthquakes. In this case, moving above or below each other of the tectonic plates, earthquakes are also caused. Volcanoes are also erupted. Now, as the edges of these plates are quite rough, they get stuck. Now, see, this is one plate, let's suppose, and this is the another plate. Plate 1, plate 2. When they are constantly moving, let's suppose this is moving in this direction, this is moving in this direction, plate 2. So when they are moving in the opposite direction, there will be sliding, and they get stuck with each other because see, friction is there. They get stuck with each other over here. But this portion of the plate moves. This portion of the plate which is far from the meeting point, it moves up because the tendency is of moving up, the tendency is of moving down. So here there is friction at this point, the meeting point, but the tendency of this plate is to move up, this tendency is to move down. So that basically, causes earthquakes. The earthquake occurs when the plate has moved far enough and the edges unstick on one of the faults. So since I told you that the tendency is to move up of this particular plate, tendency is to move down of this particular plate, when this happens, a lot of friction is there. When this force which is making it go up or this force which is making it go down overcomes the forces over here at the contact point, then there will be kind of a jerk and this will move up. There will be kind of a jerk and this will move down, and this causes earthquakes in those regions. And that is what has caused the earthquake in Taiwan. So when I talk specifically about Taiwan, so which plates were there which caused this particular earthquake in Taiwan? So basically the Philippines sea plate and the Eurasian plate. These two plates caused, the movement of these two plates caused the earthquake in Taiwan. Why so many volcanoes are there in Ring of Fire? So as I told you, when one of the plate subducts, means it goes down. This is the oceanic plate largely because it is considered soft, and this is the terrestrial plate. This is hard, so this will not go down. When this oceanic plate comes here, collides with this particular plate, then this oceanic plate goes down. When this goes down, it disrupts the magma over here inside the Earth's crust, and then the magma comes up and flows, and this causes a volcano. So that is why multiple active volcanoes are also there in this Pacific Ring of Fire. So this is basically the causes of volcanoes in this region, because most of the subduction zones on the planet are located in the Ring of Fire, and that is why it hosts large number of volcanoes, active volcanoes in this region, whether it be Indonesia or it be Japan or it be America, USA and all. Multiple active volcanoes. You will see multiple active volcanoes in South America as well, Chile region and all. So that is why it is their part of Pacific Ring of Fire, and these are active volcanoes. So that was the basically cause of this particular earthquake which happened in Taiwan with the movement of the Philippines plate and the Eurasian plate. Next is Supreme Court to hear petitions on mandatory VVPATs. So to understand this news in a proper way, so we will have to first understand the voting procedure. You go to a polling booth, you cast your vote on the EVM, and on the side of the EVM is VVPAT. VVPAT machine will bring out a printout, and on that printout the symbol of the party will be there to whom you have casted your vote. It will authenticate that to whichever party you have voted for, your vote has gone to that party only and to no one else. So that is what VVPAT does. It authenticates your vote. Now, multiple leaders presently who are in the opposition parties, they have petitioned in the Supreme Court. They have said that we want VVPAT machines with every EVM in the country. And Election Commission of India should be counting the votes polled from those chits which have been printed out from the VVPATs. It would be a very tedious exercise for Election Commission of India. See, June 1st is the last polling date, and June 4th is the result which they have to announce. They will have to deploy more people if they have to do this physical counting. And what is the use of EVM if we have to count the papers only? We could have, paper ballots or ballot system which was prevailing earlier before the EVMs were introduced. Election Commission of India time and again has given this assurance that EVMs cannot be tampered. They cannot be tampered online because they are not connected to any network. They are just there working on a standalone semiconductor chip. But yes, the opposition leaders have petitioned about this in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has said that it will be hearing on this particular issue next week. And a series of petitions have sought complete count of VVPAT slips, as opposed to the current practice of verification of votes in only a few EVMs in each assembly segment throughout the slips, through the slips. So presently, what is the scenario? 5 VVPAT machines per constituency. The demand is VVPAT machines should be there on each and every polling booth. Counting should be done from those slips which come out from VVPAT. So let us see. Supreme Court will hear on this and what does Supreme Court says. But yes, before that, what is VVPAT? The full form of VVPAT is Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail. VVPAT is an independent system attached with the electronic voting machines that allows the voters to verify that their votes are cast as intended by the voter. Petitioners have moved the top court seeking that the EC be directed to count all VVPAT slips. They also proposed simultaneous VVPAT verification. On July 17, 2023, the top court had sought the response of the EC on a plea filed by the Association for Democratic Reforms. And now, apart from Association for Democratic Reforms, there are multiple other people who have petitioned it. EC has said counting of 100% VVPAT slips would pose a great difficulty due to the amount of time it would take. The court will hear on this and let's see what the court decides. Now, what is the current practice? Current practice is, as I told you, that it is there on 5 polling stations of each assembly constituency. These VVPAT machines, and they are printing slips. So counting of those slips are done. It is verified by the EVMs. And making it universal means on all the polling stations in the constituency, will definitely increase the difficulty of Election Commission of India. And then counting those slips. So that is unnecessarily going to make the task of Election Commission of India very difficult. This is what ECI says, and obviously commonsensical also, it will definitely make it. Now, is this demand first of its kind? Means, is this kind of demand coming for the very first time? Obviously, no. Authenticity of EVMs have been a point or have been in question since long. Whenever people or parties are in opposition, they try to blame on the EVMs. Similarly, a person, Subramaniam Swamy, which happens to be part of the BJP, he filed a petition in the Supreme Court in 2013 when BJP was in opposition. So Subramaniam Swamy versus ECI case in 2013, it was petitioned by Subramaniam Swamy that at least 50% of the VVPAT machines in each constituency should be randomly verified. Means on 50% of the polling booths, VVPAT machines should be there and they should be randomly verified. Randomly verified means they should be like, you could go anytime and see, the vote you are casting to, the same print is coming or not. It is like this. But that was also not accepted because the present scenario is 5 polling booths per constituency, VVPAT machines will be there. Petitioners this time are taking reference of this particular case, that is Subramaniam Swamy versus ECI 2013 case. Now the last piece of news, that is glacial lake outbursts, floods. Now Uttarakhand government has constituted two teams of experts to evaluate the risk posed by 5 potentially hazardous glacial lakes in the region. There are in total 13 glacial lakes in Uttarakhand, but the risk is posed by 5 most, I would say, high risk potential glacial lakes. These lakes are prone to glacial lake outburst floods. Now, how does glacial lake outburst happen? When the glaciers they melt and the lake they form after melting. Now, if melting of glaciers is intensified, then the capacity of that lake is that only, it has not increased. So the excess water which that lake will receive due to the excess melting of the glaciers, it will run down and it will cause floods. Similar thing happened in 2013 in Kedarnath, because a lake above Kedarnath, it outburst and it created a lot of havoc. It happened in 2021 also in Uttarakhand, where in Chamoli district, due to glacial lake outburst, flash floods came. It happened last year, 2023, in Sikkim. We covered that. Somewhere in October it happened. And, the glacial lake outbursts itself, and the water came and into the Teesta River, which caused floods in the Teesta River. So this created a problem. And with climate change or global warming happening, there is risk increasing of these kind of disasters from glacial lake outbursts. So what is GLOF? It is a disaster event caused by abrupt discharge of water from glacial lakes, large bodies of water that sit in front of, on top of, or beneath a melting glacier. As a glacier withdraws, means it melts, it leaves behind a depression that gets filled with melted water, thereby forming a lake. If this melting of water intensifies, more water will be there, but the capacity of that lake will not increase. So that increased water will flow down, causing floods. The more the glacier recedes, the bigger and more dangerous the lake becomes. Such lakes are mostly dammed by unstable ice or sediment composed of loose rock debris. But when there is excess water, too much excess water, then this natural damming by rocks, debris or ice will not be able to stop that water. It will run down. And these are generally found on hills only, because glaciers are there on the heights. So there is natural gradient for water to flow down. So this will happen. Now, who is conducting this exercise? This exercise is being conducted by the National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, which operates under Ministry of Home Affairs. So a fact which you need to know, that NDMA is operating under Ministry of Home Affairs. And there are 188 glacial lakes in all the Himalayan states of the country. Himalayan states mean Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. Then 7 northeastern states we have. Sikkim is also there. And in Uttarakhand, there are 13 such lakes. 13 of them are in Uttarakhand. So, since this study is happening in Uttarakhand, so it will be focusing on these 13 lakes. Which factor has increased the risk of glacial outbursts? Rising surface temperatures, means global warming. It has increased the risks of glacial lake outbursts, floods. 15 million people face the risk of sudden and deadly flooding from glacial lakes in the country. So that is in itself a very big number. So this is a map where the lakes are identified, these 13 lakes. Some of them or most of them are unnamed, but yes, Vasundhara Tal, Maban, then we have Pyungru. These 3 lakes are there, and the rest are unnamed. Panidhar and Tiri district, Chamoli district, Pithoragarh district, then Pithoragarh, unnamed lake over here also, Pithoragarh district. So these are largely the northernmost districts in Uttarakhand where these lakes are found. And these lakes, out of these 13 lakes, 5 of them are at greater risk of this outburst. So the situation in Uttarakhand, it has witnessed 2 major glacial lake outburst floods events, as I mentioned earlier. First was June 2013, Kedarnath tragedy, which we know it as. And second is February 2021, when Chamoli district was hit by flash floods due to the bursting of a glacial lake. So, and last year in Sikkim it happened, as I mentioned earlier. So it has 13 glacial lakes which are prone to GLOF. Based on the analysis of available data and research from various technical institutions, these lakes have been categorized into 3 risk levels: A, B and C. So what is the objective of undertaking such kind of studies is first to identify that which glacial lakes are at higher risk. Then if outburst happens, what should be the standard operating procedure, how to minimize the damage in that case. If we have to construct any artificial structures like a dam or something like that which could save that water or stop that water, it should be built. So this is basically the purpose of this particular study. Now the topics are over. As we have started with this new exercise, the MCQs, we will be dealing with these MCQs. Now consider the following statements and mark the correct one. First is Pacific Ring of Fire is prone to earthquakes and volcanoes, and India is part of Pacific Ring of Fire. So out of these two statements, which one is correct? You might have to refer to the internet, or you might have to think to answer this question. Taiwan is located on the confluence of which of the two tectonic plates? Eurasian and Indian plate, Eurasian and Pacific plate, Chinese and Nazca plate, Philippines and Eurasian plate. So which one it is? You have to answer. The right question it is. How many statements are correct from these three statements? Complete count of VVPAT paper slips is mandated for 50% of polling stations in a constituency. ECI is aiming to count VVPAT slips on 100% of the polling booths in the 2024 general elections which are coming up. And third is VVPAT is aimed at increasing confidence among the voter. So how many of these statements are true? Only one statement is correct, only two statements are correct, only three statements are correct, or none of the statements are correct? We have to answer this. The fourth is, consider the following statements. Glacial lake outburst floods can be categorized as a climate-induced disaster. This is assertion, means A stands for assertion and R stands for reason. So this particular statement's reason is this particular statement: GLOF causes flooding due to climate change. Now you have to answer whether this statement is correct and this statement is correct. Apart from it, you have to also see that whether this second statement, that is the R statement, is the actual reason of this particular statement, that is assertion statement. So on these lines you have to see these options. Both A and R are true, and R is the correct reasoning of A, or R is the correct explanation of A. Second statement is both A and R are true and R is not the correct reason of A. C is A is true and R is false. D is A is false and R is true. So among these four options you have to choose. So UPSC has also asked these kind of questions. These are called as assertion reasoning questions, and you should be knowing to approach these kind of questions as well. This obviously requires a lot of conceptual clarity. Then only you will be able to get to it. And the last question, which of the following or which of these lakes are in Uttarakhand? Glacial lakes are in Uttarakhand. Maban, Basundhara Tal, South Lonar. So apart from these, among these, you have to choose which of them are in Uttarakhand. And with this, we come to an end of today's session. I would also request one thing, that those who are watching this regularly, please share these videos in your groups or study groups, whichever you are part of, and let them also have this information or knowledge with them, and let them also attempt these MCQs daily. So more and more results come to us in the comment section, more, I would say, motivated the entire team will be, and more motivated the students will be. So keep sharing these videos as well. Now with this, I come to an end of today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.